For those who have been wronged and betrayed, of which there are many people out there that have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. We will take care of it. We pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're jumping into a wild moment from the Piers Morgan Uncensored panel where Cenk and Ben Ferguson absolutely go at it over political violence in America, and Piers actually rolls one of the most damaging archive montages I've seen on cable television in a long time. The conversation starts as a debate about a recent attack and quickly turns into something much bigger, with Cenk calling out hypocrisy, Ben pivoting to identity politics, and Piers caught in the middle trying to keep the panel from imploding. Trust me, you do not want to scroll past this one because the second half of the clip is where everything unravels and the whole conservative framing on that panel collapses in real time. Also, do me a quick favor and drop a comment letting me know what country or city you're tuning in from today. I love seeing how far this channel reaches, and I read every single one of them. Alright, enough setup, let's get into it.
In recent years, the US has seen an increase in the number of left-wing terrorism attacks and plots. And in fact, for the first time in many years, 2025, in fact, the first time in 30 years, was the first year where left-wing terrorist attacks outnumbered those from the violent far right. So let's not get into, who's worse. Just accept there's been a lot of political violence on both sides. But why is political violence from the left surging in the way that it is? And I was particularly concerned about this guy's twisted manifesto because there were no red flags about him, no criminal record, nothing to suggest any violence in him at all. He's a teacher. He just won an award a few months ago, right? What would have driven this guy? And then you read the rhetoric of his manifesto, as he put it, and you're seeing, you talk about talking points, you're seeing a lot of the talking points that are drummed out on the left quite regularly have somehow permeated into his brain, a substantial brain, by all accounts, very smart guy, and they've made him get a train right across America, book himself into a hotel, and then try and attempt mass murder, which is what was on his mind. And my question for you, Cenk, is park right-wing political violence to one side for a moment. I'm not pretending they don't have a similar issue. I mean, it hasn't been worse historically in the last 30 years. Focus just for this on this particular guy and coming off the back of a year where left-wing political violence has overtaken right-wing violence for the first time in 3 decades. What is happening here, and how do we stop it?
Yeah, I reject all of the framing in this conversation. But let me address the heart of the matter and then this nonsense talking point that Ben had. Number one, I abhor violence. Political violence is intellectual surrender. That's saying I'm pathetic. I don't know how to win a debate, so I'll resort to being a savage and doing violence or terrorism instead. So I hate it on the right, I hate it on the left. And if you're a person who is for peace, especially if you're on the left, and our movement is for peace and nonviolence, well, then if you do violence, by definition, you're not one of us. Okay, we banish you, and you don't represent a single person other than your stupid ass. Okay. So now I won't put right-wing violence aside because, as you just said, historically, right-wing violence has been much more severe. But that's okay. I'm not trying to blame people. I'm trying to get past it, okay? For both sides, for God's sake, what is violence going to solve? All it's going to create is more violence. And why are we killing each other? This doesn't make any sense at all. We should be resolving this in an American way, and that's through debate and politics and winning the day through your arguments. So, and both sides have gotten out of hand, but who, on the left, are there people egging on violence? I literally never see that, right? That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, and now I'm disheartened to see people on the left doing it. On the right, we all know Donald Trump has historically said violence is great, that you should beat up people who he disagrees with, and he'll pay the legal costs. And Donald Trump has encouraged this kind of rhetoric from day one. And I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's healthy for him or for anyone else. Now, I do think that there are massive Secret Service failings.
Well, hang on. On that point, I know it's relevant to what you just said, because we actually have a mashup of Donald Trump talking in the way that you're describing. Let's just watch this.
This is the part of the conversation that everybody skips past, and it shouldn't be skipped because the framing here is doing all the heavy lifting. You have to understand what's happening when a host opens a segment by noting that one ideological category of political incidents has, for a single recent window, surpassed the other for the first time in 3 decades. That sentence sounds clean. It sounds like a fact. But there's a buried admission inside it that nobody on the conservative side wants to sit with. And Piers actually says it out loud. Listen to how he frames it. He concedes, in his own words, that the broader 30-year pattern has run in the opposite direction. He literally acknowledges the entire structural argument in one breath and then asks Chen to set it aside anyway. And here's what blows my mind. Chen does not take the bait. He does not get defensive. He does not pretend his side is innocent. He goes straight to the moral floor of the argument and plants a flag. He said this: political extremism of any kind is intellectual surrender. That is the line of the entire segment, because what he's doing in real time is refusing the trap that cable panels set every single time something terrible happens. The trap is, you defend your side or you condemn your side, pick one. Chen rejects the binary. He goes further than the host expected. He literally disowns violent actors on his own side in the bluntest possible language, telling them they speak for no one but themselves. He disowns extremists on his own side harder than most commentators on the other side ever disown the extremists on theirs. And then he reclaims the ground that was just conceded to him. Chen pointed out plainly that the longer historical record on domestic extremism runs heavily in one direction. He's not saying it to score a point, he's saying it because it's documented. The data on domestic extremism over the last 3 decades has been published by federal agencies, by academic researchers, by the Bureau itself. This is not a hot take. This is the historical record. And what makes Chen's response so effective is that he refuses to let one outlier window erase 30 years of pattern. That is how you actually argue against political extremism. You don't use it as a weapon and to score points against the other tribe. You name it everywhere it appears. And the other side of the panel cannot match that energy because their entire posture for the last decade has been to excuse, minimize, or redirect.
Knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise.
We have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole... That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. For those who have been wronged and betrayed, of which there are many people out there that have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. We will take care of it. We pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy.
Now that substantiates the point you're making, Cenk.
Yeah, you see, look, that is so unhelpful, including to Donald Trump. There's one clip in there that isn't quite right. The bloodbath clip was about the economy, not about violence. But the rest of it was purely about violence. And in fact, that last one was a rhetorical shot at chicken hawks. And so if he just left it at they're hypocritical, there's no problem. But now look at what he said. If they're going to send in troops to the Middle East, they should have guns pointed at their face. Now he's sending in troops to the Middle East. And that's why you shouldn't talk like that, because it encourages violence overall. Now, to the Secret Service. Look, guys, they've had tremendous failures, and I have a ton of questions. And a lot of people on the left and the right have a ton of questions about their performance, including, by the way, the guy who failed miserably in Butler, Pennsylvania, the head of the Secret Service in that particular location and date, has now been promoted to the head of the Secret Service. That is a very curious, bizarre thing. And by the way, if you listen to Ben talk, you would think that the Secret Service is all minorities and women. No, it's overwhelmingly white males. So why are you blaming white males? And is that your problem with DEI, that we're hiring too many white people or too many men?
Okay. The second the montage starts rolling, the entire debate shifts, and you can feel it, because everything Chen just argued, every single point about how rhetoric from the top permeates downward, gets validated in real time by the very person being defended on the other side of the panel. And I want to be honest with you, when I watch a moment like this, I don't feel triumphant. I feel uneasy, because the man speaking in that montage is not a private citizen. He held the most powerful office on the planet. And the words coming out of his mouth in those clips are not policy. They're not strategy. They're not even sharp political rhetoric. They're rally lines that scholars of political communication have been studying with growing concern for years. You have him offering, on stage, to cover the legal costs of audience members who physically confront protesters. That is not a slip. That is a transaction. He's offering legal cover in exchange for a specific kind of crowd behavior. Then you have the now infamous retribution passage, in which domestic political opponents are described using animal-based dehumanizing language. The specific noun he chose is the part that should stop everyone cold, because the historical record on that exact category of word used by political leaders to describe their domestic opponents is one of the most studied warning signs in 20th century scholarship. Hannah Arendt wrote entire books on this pattern. Yale historian Timothy Snyder has written about it extensively. The dehumanization of political opponents through animal language is documented by academic historians as a precursor pattern. This is not me being dramatic. This is academic consensus. And then the firearm imagery clip lands. He invokes a hypothetical involving a sitting member of Congress and weaponry in a tone the audience treats as a joke. And here's where Chen does something brilliant. He doesn't just point at the obvious. He finds the deeper hypocrisy. Chen highlights the troops in the Middle East angle, noting that this same speaker who once mocked aggressive foreign policy hawks has in office deployed the exact posture he used to ridicule. That is the kill shot of the entire segment, because it exposes the rhetorical sleight of hand. The man mocked the hawks while becoming one. The principle was never the principle. The principle was the camera angle. And by the way, on the question of foreign policy in that region, the people who bear the heaviest cost of these decisions are the civilians on the ground, including the ones in Iran who have lived under decades of external pressure from powers that treat their country like a chess piece.
So the guy who got promoted is also a white male. I think the real question isn't this distraction about identity politics and culture wars. The real question is, what the hell is going on? Why did they let him take that shot in Butler? Why did they move the photographers into place to get the exact right shot? There's a lot of people on the right as well as the left going, that Butler, Pennsylvania shooting makes no sense at all. And we're not saying we know who did it and what happened. What we're asking is, why doesn't our government care about shooting of the president? Why doesn't Trump care? Trump never talks about it. Normally, Trump would be going crazy about what a hero he is, etc.
When I talk about bureaucracy and DEI, it's not just women. There's social promotion of men of certain, whether it's skin color or political beliefs. You've made that agency.
But the Secret Service is overwhelmingly white, Ben. So, like, is it?
Let me at least finish what I'm saying. If you're getting promoted because you're a bureaucrat, because you're a liberal white guy, okay?
Oh, God.
Then that's
you think there's DEI for liberal white guys in the Secret Service?
Now the white guys are liberals.
That have been in our government that have been promoted.
Is there no bounds of reason?
I do. I absolutely believe
this is why you
guys
are getting creamed in the midterms right now. You have nothing. Nothing.
I'm going to finish my point. I'm going to finish what I was saying.
Nothing but culture war crap.
It is a failure.
Culture war
right
bullshit. Identity politics nonsense. Nothing.
Point. I didn't interrupt you when you were saying it. I listened to what you said.
Ben, you're the biggest interrupter in the entire commentator set. You've been interrupting me since the minute we started this. Like, stop. Come on.
Okay.
You actually got the last time I talked to you, Ben, you were on CNN and the host had to tell you to shut up.
I'm literally going to finish what I said, and I'll go back to the core point here. If you run the Secret Service the way it's being run now, it will continue to be a failure. There needs to be a massive overhaul of the Secret Service for Democrats and Republicans. The way that it's being done now is not working. When you've got a guy that can run through, have multiple people shoot him, and he not get hit by what's supposed to be the best security force for a president of the United States of America, whether a Democrat or Republican, and he can run right through the damn metal detectors, and then get shot at, and no one shoot him. And the only thing that saved him from being killed, I guess, is that he fell down and saved people's lives in that room. Like, let's not act like the Secret Service is above reproach here. And there has to be a moment where we say,
no one is saying that they're above reproach,
better than
Ben.
this.
Ben, nobody is saying that the Secret Service is above reproach. You're just making it about stupid identity politics because it's all you have.
And this is where the whole conservative argument collapses, and you can almost see it happen on screen, because Ben spends the entire Secret Service portion trying to pivot the conversation toward DEI, toward identity politics, toward this fantasy where every institutional failure is caused by hiring a woman or a person of color, and Chen just refuses to let it land. He drops the actual data. Chen pointed out that contrary to the implication, the agency in question is overwhelmingly composed of white men, and that the official promoted after the Butler security failure is also a white man. Game over. The premise of the entire culture war framing falls apart inside one sentence, because it was never true to begin with. And here's the part that people don't realize. The reason this kind of pivot works on cable television is because most hosts don't push back. They let the DEI grenade get tossed into the conversation and then they move on. Chen does not move on. He stays on it. He diagnoses the issue directly, telling Ben that the reason his side is bleeding ground in the upcoming midterms is that the entire product on offer is grievance. That is the diagnosis of the modern conservative media ecosystem in 2 sentences. It's not policy. It's not economics. It's not foreign policy. It's grievance theater. And when grievance theater is the only product on the shelf, voters eventually walk past the store. Then Chen lands the personal hit, and I'm not gonna lie, this one is funny. He reminds Ben, on air, of a previous appearance on a different network where the host had to explicitly tell him to stop talking. That is a humiliation that you cannot recover from on live television, because it's specific, it's verifiable. It happened, and it tells the audience exactly what kind of guest Ben is on every panel he appears on. The one who treats interruption as a strategy and gets corrected by hosts who have run out of patience. The real takeaway from this whole segment is something I want everyone watching to hold on to. When a political movement runs out of arguments, it runs to identity. When it runs out of identity, it runs to grievance. And historians who study political communication have documented repeatedly what tends to happen when grievance becomes the only remaining product. The warning signs are well mapped in the academic literature. Chen is not being hysterical when he names the pattern. He's reading from a manual that scholars have been writing for nearly a century. So, what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.